Coming up on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell. I'm back here with Ron Richards and Michelle Rahman. We got a lot of news this week, and for those of you who don't like hardware news, hey, this is an episode without any hardware news, so you're going to get your wish. We've got Find My Device actually working while a device is powered off. That's cool. We got easy app data deletion for users. That's cool. Auto archiving apps is here. That's really cool. And that's all in the top news block. That's not even mentioning free money on Google Pay, app streaming to Chromebooks, SwiftKey getting Bing chatbot, and the demise of the Google Now launcher. That's right. We got tons of news, app news as well, and your feedback next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is All About Android, episode 625, recorded Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. The Google Then launcher. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Delete Me. Reclaim your privacy by removing personal data from online sources. Protect yourself and reduce the risk of fraud, spam, cybersecurity threats, and more by going to joindeleteme.com/twit and use code TWIT for 20% off. And by CacheFly. CacheFly is the only CDN built for throughput, delivering rich media content up to 10 times faster than traditional delivery methods and 30% faster than other major CDNs. Learn how you can get your first month free at cachefly.com. Hello, welcome to All About Android, your weekly source for the latest news. Normally your latest hardware, but we don't have any hardware news to talk about, and the latest apps every week in the world of Android. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Michelle Rahman.
Oh, yeah. It is the three of us today. It's like every week you get a different recipe, a different All About Android recipe.
Well, even more importantly, welcome back, Jason, after a 2-week hiatus. It's good to have you back in the chair. Right?
Yeah, it's good to be back in the chair. I know. Today has been my day of adjustment. You know, when you step away from your job and you go on a long vacation. I mean, I was gone for 2.5 weeks, so that wasn't just a little quick sprint. That was 2.5 weeks being totally disconnected from tech news. And I really did my very best to completely disconnect, which is great while you're gone. But then once you return, it's hard getting caught back up. So that's the challenge in doing that. But we should all get a little bit of a break like that every once in a while, even if it is hard coming back. So it was very enjoyable.
You mentioned there's not a lot of hardware in this week's show, but I feel like we covered the hardware beat pretty well while you were out. We had a couple of, we had Mateo with the insane Unihertz phones. We talked about the other new phones that came out. So we got it covered, Jason, and we handled it.
All right. Hardware's been covered. It's made room for this episode where we have, you know, a lot of just general Android news for the most part, and some app news, which is, it's kind of refreshing. I do feel like and we certainly get this feedback from time to time from listeners and fans of the show that, you know, some of the feedback that I get from people who aren't as interested in the hardware is like, well, I've got my Pixel. That's really the phone that I care about. Or I've got my Samsung or whatever their device is. Like, I don't care about the next, you know, big hardware device. This is the episode for you because we don't have any new hardware to talk about. We just have a lot of news to talk about. So if you like your Android with news, then you're going to love this episode of All About Android, starting with the news bumper.
And you know how I like to make the Android news about me?
Yeah.
If I had Find My working with where you can actually have it running with your phone off, I would have 2 old phones that I don't have now, if that makes any sense.
Do you want to do another take on that, Burke, or do you want to?
No, that was perfect. Print it.
Do you want to get one for safety, or?
Oh, but see, anytime that happens, because it does happen from time to time, I'm reminded of the times that I've been there, Burke. So on one hand, I want to like
crippling camera shyness.
Yes, on one hand I want to rib you about it, and on the other hand, I I want to give you a hug because I've been there. I know what it feels like.
Running the show behind the scenes and setting up before it
all
starts,
of the
too.
pressure that is involved in keeping the show running.
Good.
You know, the person behind the scenes, if you're doing your job right, people don't notice you, right? It's only when the thing goes wrong that
Ron.
suddenly everybody notices that you're there. And
Maybe.
I've been there. I feel you, man. Nice try. There's always next week. Okay, let's jump into the news, starting with this. I thought this was actually pretty cool, and apparently Apple devices have had this for I don't know how long. So this is one of those things like, okay, they had it first, and finally it looks like it's coming to Android. But Find My Device, even when my device is turned off, because right now on Android, if you want to locate your device, say you leave it in a cab or something like that, or someone steals it, you only
Or you
really
leave it at the Lowe's parking lot.
did that happen to you?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely not.
All right. That was
Yes,
just
it
interestingly specific. If that happened to you, or when it did happen to you, apparently, Burke, you can only really track your phone, at least on an ongoing basis, like in real time, if your phone is turned on. If it's turned off, I think that tool reports back to you the last known place that it was reported as on, which that information could either be very useful or not at all useful because it's not there anymore. And it's off. So who the heck knows where in this world is Carmen phone. But apparently Google is working on this for Pixel phones. It's called Pixel Power Off Finder. Google's working to build a network, of course, for all Android devices, so including UWB, locator tags, phones, all that type of stuff. So this would be a part of that. Source code reportedly shared with OEMs in the Android 14 early access program seemed to point to this being in the works. It would require the Bluetooth chip to be kept on even when the phone is shut down.
Which seems like a oxymoron, or what is that? Like, how can the Bluetooth chip be on if the phone is shut down?
Well, it requires, I imagine, and Michelle, maybe you can speak to this, but I imagine it requires a certain type of Bluetooth low energy chip in order to do that. Do you?
No energy chip.
Well, there's like broadly three things that need to be done for this kind of feature to pan out. So the first thing is the Find My Device app itself needs to be updated to, support this feature. The second thing is at the OS level, there needs to be a way for the OS to basically send this data off to the Bluetooth chip. And that's what in the article that we're talking about, they mentioned a hardware abstraction layer. That's basically what they're talking about. The way for the OS to say, here is my Finder device, like my broadcast ID. I'm going to send this off and store that on the Bluetooth chip. And then the third thing that needs to happen is that the device needs to be designed in such a way that it can provide power to the Bluetooth chip even when the Android OS is powered down. So the OS can be off, but maybe like the battery is still hooked up to the to the system on chip, and the system on chip is still able to provide power to the Bluetooth chip, even when OS itself isn't running. So once you have all three of those things working, then you could have the device broadcast, its Finder ID, whatever it is, periodically, like maybe every 10 seconds, even when Android itself is shut down. So when you have all that happening, that's how you get this kind of feature working.
Fascinating. And then but I guess what comes to mind for me is, what about the battery implications of that? If because I shut down my phone, my thinking is my phone's off. Therefore, my battery is depleting so slowly, because I know there's no real way to like stop my battery from depleting. I've come across devices that I shut down, that I've had in a drawer for years, and I'm pretty sure I probably left with a charge at one point, and I go to it now and it's completely depleted. So over time it just kind of empties. But isn't this going to empty that faster if there's a Bluetooth chip on the device still sipping that battery juice even when the phone's turned off?
Well, actually, think about those Bluetooth trackers that you're familiar with, right? Those things are really, really, really tiny,
That's
right?
true.
And they last a couple of days on a minuscule battery, much smaller than what's in your smartphone.
Yeah.
Think about how long a smartphone-sized battery would last with the same kind of feature, just broadcasting when there's no display running, there's no modem.
That's a great
5G.
Yep.
So it could probably last like weeks, to be honest.
Right, but those devices exist only to do that, right? And I just worry about admittedly, like Bluetooth LE stands for low energy, right? But like the Bluetooth chip in the phone in a more complex system with a battery, like I don't know, I want to see it before I believe it, right? That it actually doesn't drain, not to be a little skeptical to it, but it doesn't, I could see a world where it drains a little more than they intend. But I guess we'll have to find out. I mean, clearly Apple can do it, right? So they can
right.
too.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's possible. I'm trying to think if I've read any, sort of stories or seen any headlines over the past few years, since Apple has introduced this. I honestly don't know when Apple introduced this feature. I should have looked that up. But, if anybody's really noticed that, like, my powered off state used to last me X number of days, but now it's like 5 days shorter because, it must be because this thing is sipping on the battery juice. But I don't recall seeing those stories. So maybe it's really kind of minuscule. Maybe
I would like
doesn't
to
matter.
add that everybody usually keeps all that stuff on anyway and doesn't turn it off like normal Joes. So
Yeah, that's true. The majority of the time these devices are left on. But I think this is a really powerful feature for the person who gets their phone stolen, and the automatic kind of go-to for the thief might be powered off, because then they can't track it anymore, and then we can do whatever it is the next step that thieves do with a stolen phone, even if it's powered off. I guess, what does that mean? That the thief would then have to wipe the phone the minute they get it, but they'd still need to be able to get into it. And if they don't know the security PIN or password or whatever, then, I mean, that really diminishes what a thief could do with a stolen phone, right?
Well, I think it just gives you the possibility of finding it more.
Gives you, right.
Yeah, finding it. What happens when you find it? I don't know.
Yeah. Just be careful. If you're hunting down your stolen phone, you don't know who's on the other end of that stolen phone. So just be careful, just because you can.
It's a good rule of thumb there.
Yeah. I like that.
All right.
Though. I think that's great.
Well, so in terms of some interesting stuff coming potentially from Google, Android developers will soon be required to give users the ability to delete their account data both in the app and online. And this is going to apply to any app that requires a user to create an account. Now, if users wish to do this, oftentimes they have to contact the developer directly if it isn't already offered. And this basically would require a kill switch that would make it easy to delete the data for the user. Also, this function must be readily discoverable and linked to from the Play Store page even. And no word yet on how or if Google will verify that the data is deleted when a user requests it. But this has been coming, I think, honestly on both sides of the fence. I ran into this with our app, with my app for Scorbit that we have, because we have both iOS and Android versions, and I know that iOS has required this of developers as well to make it easy for people to delete their information via the app and all their information with you as an organization, not just within the app. Mm-hmm. That layer of abstraction between the app and the website is an important, layer to put in, because sometimes some apps kick you to their website to create an account. Like, it's a sneaky kind of way around it.
Yeah.
But this also screams and feels like, EU compliance, in terms of like say what you will about the EU, but nobody else protects the users more or better than the EU in that regard. Yeah. So unknown if this is, to get ahead of that or related to EU legislation, but it's definitely a way to give users more control over their data that's owned by developers. So, or taken in by developers.
Yeah, a move by Google to get ahead of even further regulation in places like the US, where, these things are being threatened as well against companies like Google. How do we know that? So, and we talked about this a little bit on Security Now with Steve Gibson earlier today. And the question that I had for it is like, okay, this is awesome. I love this. It should be easy to delete this information. I still don't know how much I trust when I tell a company, all right, delete my account, get rid of it. What does that mean to them? Does that mean, all right, we delete your ability to log into this data that we hold on to indefinitely on our servers? Does that mean, so we cut off the linkage between any sort of account access to that data? Does that mean we delete the data, or does that mean we scrub the data after we delete it? Like, I don't know. And, I don't know whether I trust more or less the random person who created an app or a service to do this sort of stuff, to delete it properly. And I don't know that Google, is requiring any sort of verification that happens. They just want the user to have the ability to request that deletion and to be able to do that without having to jump through a number of hoops. So I guess that's a whole other issue. Like, okay, what does deleting mean? Hopefully they're actually deleting it if you tell them to. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's worth noting that this new data request, the request to delete your data or accounts is being put into the data safety section of Google Play. And all the information that's in that section is all self-reported by developers. So, if when an app says it's using your location for app functionality, for example, that's what the app developer says they're using it for, right?
Sure.
Google's not actually going in there and verifying that they're only using your location data for that specific purpose. But if an app developer puts it there and you find out maybe through an external audit that they're lying about it, then obviously that's the app developer's problem. And because they lied on that form, Google could potentially take action against them. So even though Google is not enforcing, they don't really have any way of verifying that every app
totally
that says they're deleting your data is actually doing that. But if they find out an app is lying about it, potentially, I guess they could take action, because they misrepresented what they're saying they're doing on Google Play.
All right. That works. That works for me. I like that. You're giving lots of really great counterpoints today, Michal. Love it when you're on. It's like, okay, cool. I feel like I get some more of a resolution on this. My questions have been answered, because I think you're absolutely right. There really is nothing that Google could do to assert, and we want to know that you have verifiably deleted all that information when you say, when the user says, I want it done. But they can hold those developers responsible if it's found down the line that they are lying. So that's good. I like that. I can get behind that. And then also a lot of developer-focused news for developers and for users. Auto archive. This is a thing that we've talked about in previous episodes, coming to Android at some point. It's beginning to roll out. It allows the user to partially uninstall an app, shrinking that footprint of that app by around 60% in the process, is what Google says. Once the app has been archived, you would see the icon normally on your home screen, right? So that icon changes. It's like a cloud with a little download arrow on it. So that signifies that this app, has kind of been offloaded. If you want to reopen that app, you have to tap it, and that downloads the necessary components, those missing components that it had offloaded. So the idea here, of course, is saving space on your device. This only applies to apps that are published with Android's app bundle format. That's what kind of powers this ability to compartmentalize the app and load certain pieces of it, not others, or have certain pieces left over, but not others, and then load them on a need-be basis down the line. One thing that I don't know, and I couldn't find anyone writing about the ability to do this like intentionally to like, I don't know if there's going to be a setting that allows me as a user to say, I want to archive this app. Like, from what I can tell, you get a pop-up. So if your device is close to out of room and you go to install another app, the device or the Play Store, I'm not sure what component of this, recognizes that you don't have enough space, enough storage on your device to install that app, and then says, hey, you don't have enough space to do that. Might I suggest that you uninstall portions of some of the apps that you have installed that you aren't using, and that will free up some space. So it's like opt-in once it's officially needed because you're out of space. Will users be able to just do this on their own, maybe eventually, if not at launch? I don't know. Michal, do you know anything about that aspect? Because I'm sure you've been tracking this code for a while now before this news.
Yeah, I can give like a quick TLDR of how it works as well,
Sure.
if you want to know.
Absolutely.
So like as you mentioned, it relies on apps being published in the app bundle format. So what an app bundle is it's basically the base application and then a whole bunch of different assets and resources that are all in one bundle file. And then Google Play takes that bundle and it generates the actual APK files that you're familiar with that you actually install on your Android device. So it generates a base APK that's like the base code for the application, and then maybe an English language APK that includes the English language resources, and then like a specific APK for your density or your specific display size. So what what app archiving actually does is they're generating a new kind of APK called an archived APK. It has the same signature as the APK that you're going to be archiving, but it basically has no code, no resources or anything. It's basically an empty APK. And they push that and they install it on top of your app. So what you're left with is the app that has basically no code, but all the data intact. And then everything else is gone. But when you tap the icon, it re-downloads the base APK and all those things that you had before. So that's basically the trick they're using. And it's pretty clever. And been waiting for this app to roll out for a while, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the automatically archiving apps, as for like why Google chose to make it this strange opt-in way, like I don't have like an official word from Google, but my theory is that they wanted to make it opt-in only to users who are low on storage because I'm guessing they heard from developers that they were worried that we don't really want users to archive our apps when they're not using them like periodically. Say, for example, I'm just going to name drop like a ride sharing app, right? You don't really open it that often until you actually need it. But how many times do you get notifications from those apps? Like I'm not going to name names, but I get notifications from them all the time, right?
Yeah.
What happens if you archive them because you're annoyed by them and you don't want to use them and you only want to use it whenever you need it, right? A lot of things they can't do anymore. So I think, they don't want to anger developers who, are worried that users are going to start mass archiving their app and all of a sudden they can't communicate with users anymore, while still giving users this chance who actually really need it, to opt in.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe the reasoning why it's rolled out this way. Like, again, Google hasn't confirmed it. I'm just speculating, but I think that would explain why, it's done this way.
That's interesting because I think that makes a lot of sense. At the same time, we have other ways of managing this stuff too, right? Like it's pretty easy to, when you receive a notification from an app that you don't want to receive anymore, to long press that notification and turn off notifications for that app entirely, which I've done a lot more in the past year, I'd say, where I'm just like, I don't need to hear from this app, every other day. It's just junking up my notifications and to do that. So there are other ways to kind of silence these apps. And I guess when I look at this, I'm like, well, what's really the difference then? Like they're both very similar in that regard. But like what I envision happening is, and I think you're right. Like that makes a lot of sense where you're coming from. And I envision Google a year or two down the line being like, and now you can archive any app you want. It becomes, maybe it's a pixel feature drop down the line.
It becomes the next bit Robin, you mean?
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, anytime this topic has come up, that's exactly what jumps to my mind is the genesis of this idea was the next bit Robin. Robin was very forward thinking in that regard. But even then, I remember
how many years ago? I mean,
what was the like Robin? 6 years ago is just a guess, but probably something like that. Yeah,
it was. Let's see. Next Bit Robin came out in what year was it? Cloud first, 2016, 7 years ago.
Okay, all right. So about that. But I mean, even then, the idea of offloading apps to save storage felt like, yeah, but we have so much storage. Like, why is this an issue? You know what I mean? Like, it was really cool. It was like, and I just don't know that I really need that, but that's neat. And here we are 7 years later, and it's like come full circle again. It's just interesting how all this stuff works. So good job, Robin. You were 7 years ahead of the game. All right, we're going to get into more news coming up. But first, we're going to take a break and thank the sponsor of this episode. Actually, a new sponsor on the Twit Network and all about Android. Really cool stuff. Delete Me. Have you ever searched for your name online and you didn't like how much of your personal information was available when you did that? You see that information out there and it kind of makes you feel, I don't know, maybe unsafe. Maybe you feel exposed, like, oh God, I didn't even know my address was floating out there on the web so easy to find. But there it is. And, we like to think that we're sealed off from certain, details of our life being available in the open web and the open, to the public. But yet these things do happen, right? They are out there. And do you know how to find them? Well, since 2010, Delete Me has been on a mission to empower individuals and organizations by allowing them to reclaim their privacy and help them remove personal data from online sources. Their team is driven by a passion for privacy and a commitment to making it simple for customers to use. So Delete Me, and that's one word, Delete Me, helps reduce risk from identity theft, from credit card fraud, robocalls, spam, cybersecurity threats, harassment, unwanted communications, all of the above. Delete Me is the most trusted privacy solution available. It helps thousands of customers remove their personal information online. Did you know that the average person has more than 2,000 pieces of data about them online that Delete Me can find and remove? Just think about how much time that saves you if you wanted to do that on your own. God, that does not sound like a fun task, but a lot of people have, right? It's really important that we don't have certain pieces of information out there, to protect you. Like social engineering is a thing, and this is kind of how it's driven, right? Delete Me has removed more than 50 million pieces of data for their customers. One customer actually said, I signed up, they took it from there. Awesome service, already seeing results. Personally, this is Jason Howell speaking. I was gone on vacation when Delete Me came on as a sponsor. So I'm a little behind the game. I had not used Delete Me before, but I signed up for it today to kind of check it out. And so I'm not seeing the effects of it yet, but I do know that the onboarding experience, kind of the data entry experience, was really interesting to me, because I think when I first thought about signing up for Delete Me, I was like, well, I'm a pretty public person. Like, what information do I have that I don't want people to see? I wasn't thinking of it as details about address or phone number or these things that are, probably, I'm guessing if you searched hard enough, you could probably find it on me or really anybody, because these data sources are so wide and we've been on the internet for so long. It just happens. And so it was interesting and actually very cool to go through the onboarding process with Delete Me. There's a part of it where it asks you, if you want to, you can upload a photo of your ID, right? And that's primarily, which at first you're like, wait a minute, why am I uploading my ID? Well, because certain data sources won't remove, or data brokers won't remove data unless they know that it's coming from the person that's requesting it. And that's a way of verifying you are who you are, and I don't want this information out there. And they go, okay, well, that lines up with your ID. Let's strike it. And so I'm really curious to see what it does. And they report, of course, how that's going along the way. So here's how it works. First, you sign up, you submit, like I said, some basic personal information for removal from search engines. You just go to joindeleteme.com/twit. And then Delete Me experts will find and remove your personal information from more than 580 data brokers. So that's going to help reduce your online footprint, keep you and your family safe in the process. Now, once the removal process starts, you're going to receive a detailed Delete Me report within 7 days. So I'm at the beginning of that. So 7 days from now, sometime within that time, I'm going to get a report. Super curious to see what that says. And it doesn't stop there. Delete Me will continue to scan and remove your personal information every 3 months. So they've got an automated removal opt-out monitoring. They're going to ensure records don't get repopulated after being removed. So meticulous detail there. This includes names, addresses, photos, emails, relatives, phone numbers, social media, property value. I mean, it's extensive and more beyond just that I just read there. As the data broker industry expands, contracts, and morphs, they continue to add new sites and features to ensure their service is both simple to use and effective in removing personally identifiable information. That's Delete Me is just continually, expanding their feature set to tackle these challenges. And since privacy exposures and incidents affect individuals differently, their privacy advisors ensure that all of their customers have the support they need when they need it. Really cool stuff. I'm super curious and interested to see how this goes. And I think you will be too. You should check it out. Protect yourself and reclaim your privacy by going to joindeleteme.com/twit. Make sure and use the code TWIT. When you sign up, you'll get 20% off if you use that code. That's joindeleteme.com/twit. And again, that code TWIT, easy to remember. You'll get 20% off when you do that. And we thank Delete Me for keeping us safe and secure and private online. Thank you, Delete Me. It's great to have you on board. All right, no need for any of those bumpers or anything because we just got more news. We'll throw it over to you, Michelle, because you got a couple of things here that actually this first one is just kind of like, what? Like, this didn't happen for me, but it seems like it happened for you. It's a Google Pay. I don't know. Does this qualify as a kerfuffle that ended up paying you $46? And I don't know. Tell us a little bit about how this is going down for people with Google Pay.
Well, I mean, a lot of users, like myself included, all of a sudden noticed that when we opened the Google Pay app and swiped over to the deals tab, we noticed that there was a whole bunch of money, like free money just given to us, just sitting there. Oh. And when we tapped on it, it said it was for, quote, dog fooding the Google Pay remittance experience. And of course, none of us are employees at Google, so we can't be dog fooding their products in the first place. What that term means that you're testing internally some feature or experience. So clearly this is some kind of mistake and users were just getting money for nothing. Maybe some Google Pay engineer was testing something and accidentally selected the wrong cohort and a whole bunch of random users got a whole bunch of free money. I only got like $46 in my inbox.
I was going to say, did anybody here get, I got $70, like $70.82 or something like that. And I was like, as soon as it came in, I went to transfer it to my bank and then I got distracted. And then I saw then I got the, oops, sorry. I was like, damn it.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Missed it by that much.
I know. Yep.
No, I don't have any.
So I guess the larger question though, Michelle, is that yes, it was like clearly a mistake and clearly a problem, but like, did that cash actually go into people's account or did the app think you had that cash, right? Like,
I think it was actually like, it reflected in my total because I already had a balance before and it was added to that balance. And I can't verify it myself, but some people are saying that they were actually able to transfer that money out. And I do believe them because Google Pay, in the email they sent afterwards, confirming it was a bug, they said that if they can't retrieve the money, then you get to keep it, which means that there were definitely people who transferred it out.
Go,
we're able to transfer it out, right? Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, no,
I wish I was faster.
I mean,
your finger then.
Yeah.
I assumed it was a bug, right? So of course, if you transferred it out, right, they're probably gonna do a chargeback or maybe even close your account. So I didn't do anything. I just let it sit there. But so I was surprised to see they didn't do anything to people who had just took the money and ran.
That's funny. That's interesting.
Funny.
Although it encourages people the next time there's like a site issue, that happens or whatever, it encourages people to benefit or capitalize
they should make
off of
mistakes.
No, it's true. I mean, I've talked about Slick Deals on this show in the past, and I've realized over time that Slick Deals, it's kind of which for those who don't know, it's and I promise it will make sense in the context of this, but Slick Deals is an app that follows when it's like a community-driven app that monitors when the price of something goes so low that it's worth everybody in the Slick Deals community to know about, because I think a lot of people are just kind of, whoa, suddenly I can get this this laptop stand that's normally $50 on Amazon for $10. That's a really great sale, and then suddenly it just gets bombarded, and everybody goes in there and buys $10 laptop stands or whatever. And the kind of the controversy around it is that there are a lot of people that use that app to monitor for like errors that sites will make. So, that MacBook Pro that accidentally goes up on mom and pop electronics store, website for $100, and then suddenly it hits Slick Deals and everybody goes there and scoops up all the $100 MacBook Pros. And, the controversy around that is, well, you're hurting, the company by doing that. But then the flip side of that is, don't publish incorrect information. And, anyways, so it just kind of, I think something like this, has the potential to encourage people to capitalize on those mistakes when they happen. But it's coming from Google. So I think Google can handle it. Some other companies probably can't, but Google can definitely handle it.
Uh-oh. Of all people, what's their market cap? Yeah, they can handle it.
They're doing okay, I think. Now, this is in the GPay app, right?
Yes.
GPay same as Google Pay?
The old wallet, whatever.
Yeah, I know. I
want to get into that mess. Yeah, it's the GPay app, the one that's available for Americans, and I think also in Singapore.
Yeah.
I don't know what other countries it's available in. I think it's expanded to a couple of others, but yeah. The new GPay app, not the old Google Pay app.
Right. Yes, I know. It gets confusing. Like I opened up GPay and I still have $7.50 in total rewards. So I don't have a bonus in here. And then I was like, well, maybe I'm in the wrong app. Maybe I need to go into the other one. But anyways. Okay. Well, there you go. If you got some extra rewards, congratulations. Let us know. AAA@twit.tv. We'd love to hear about it. And then Michelle, you also had this app streaming kind of trifecta of tweets, or at least tweet threads anyways. Tell us a little bit about this streaming apps from your Chromebook, right? Am I getting that right? Android 13?
From your phone.
From your phone. Okay, got it.
Right. So back at CES 2022, all the way back in early 2022, Google announced that you'll be able to stream your messaging apps to your Chromebook. And so it's been over a year, and finally that feature has soft launched. Like, Google hasn't made a formal announcement. They just quietly rolled out the update to the Android app that makes this possible. So what happened is users noticed that there was an update to an app called Cross-Device Services on their Android phone. And this app, under the hood, basically creates a secondary display on your phone. It launches an app of your choice on that display, and then it creates a web stream that streams that display to your Chromebook. And then your Chromebook sends taps and touches and even microphone input back to the app that's running on that virtual display. So you're literally like creating like a web stream and streaming like a hidden display on your phone with an app running on it to your Chromebook. So that's kind of like the nerdy under the hood scene, behind the scenes of how it works. And this cool. Basically just lets you stream any app. Google initially said it would be messaging apps, but it's actually almost any app on your phone, with a few exceptions. Like, they don't let you stream financial apps or medical apps. I'm presuming for health and safety reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do whatever you normally do on your phone with those apps just from your Chromebook instead of your phone. You can even when your phone is locked, you can just open your Chromebook and launch from the app list on your phone, and then just launch an app directly on your Chromebook and interact with it. There are some limitations right now, like you can't sync the clipboard because it's not set up for that. You can't move the window.
That would be so handy, though. That would be so helpful to sync the clipboard. That seems like something
there's
in there.
People have been giving Google feedback on this stuff. I'm sure they've heard a lot of it. Especially the fact that you can't move or resize the window right now. I'm sure they have that like
that's a biggie. Already. Yeah, that's like immediately in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, you open up like a Twitter client or whatever, and then stretch it to full, and that part of your screen is said you can't do that. It's just
another key thing to note is that kind of a lot of people assume that this would be a Pixel exclusive feature. Like, you'd have to have a Pixel phone to be able to stream an app to a Chromebook. But it turns out that this is probably going to be available to a lot more Android devices. The only caveat being that they have to be running Android 13 or later, and they also have to have this app that I mentioned earlier, cross-device services, that has to be pre-installed by the OEM. And so OEMs could ship that on new devices out of the box, or they could, push an update to include that app on their devices. But if it's not pre-installed, then it's not going to work. You can't just go to Google Play and download it and have it work on your device.
I wonder if that's something that's going to be baked into a future version of Android, kind of as a by default, not requiring that to be installed piecemeal.
Well, it seems to be like the implementation of it, like that cross-device services app, it's like completely proprietary. So like Google offers it to OEMs, who ask for it. So I don't think it'll ever be part of the OS, because that would be, in AOSP or open source.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense. Interesting. Well, that's a great start. Kind of nice extra feature to make Google's hardware feel a little bit more ecosystem-y, the way Apple's hardware does, right? Where it has kind of these cross-device kind of communication / streaming, send this to that screen, that sort of thing. Google's getting in on that with its Chromebooks and other devices, and that's a good thing for the ecosystem play. So
I will say this whole the streaming thing sounds like Visor.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Visor.
Which I use.
Visor's still around?
Visor's still around. In fact, I used it. We were doing we did a live stream for iFanboy, and we decided to play Marvel Snap on the live stream, and we were trying to figure out how to get the live stream to see my screen while playing the game, and I was trying to figure out the best way to do that, and I settled on Visor, which worked like a charm, which was awesome. And it was basically just Chromecasting my phone to my Mac desktop, and then I was able to pull that into the live stream, and it came out great. But it's neat to do that natively on a Chromebook, because why not, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, neat.
So yeah, that is something I kind of wanted to differentiate. Like, as you guys mentioned, there are other services that offer app streaming capabilities, like Microsoft, for example, on Samsung devices and a couple of Honor and other devices, you can do the similar app streaming, but they all use different methods to do it. Like, I think Microsoft's solution involves actually recording the screen and sending that as like a video feed, which is kind of, it sounds similar to what I just mentioned with Google, but Google's using like platform APIs that are only available to system applications. And so it's a little more integrated, Google's approach. Whereas Visor also uses, like, it requires you to have ADB enabled, for example. So you have to enable developer options and so on. So there's various different approaches. Like, Google's is the most integrated into the OS because it's Google, they can do that. But, it's not the only one that works.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yep.
I was just doing some searching on Visor and remembering.
It's pretty cool.
Just remembering Kosh, how Kosh Dutta, who was the developer of Visor, and I guess still is.
Friend of the show.
A friend of the show was on many years ago, a handful of times. I'm just reminded, like, oh man, there was a time when Kosh was like constantly in Android news circle. You know what I mean? He was featured a lot in Android news because there was so much happening in I'd say probably the early 2010s. He was probably very, very active, and I wonder what he's up to now. I'm looking at his Twitter feed, and it's not very informative as far as like kind of what his current day-to-day is, but just kind of curious.
He's a very politically active commentator on Twitter.
Yeah.
Definitely find out quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm
looking at his GitHub to see what his latest has been. I mean, 2003, over 2,000 contributions in the last year to GitHub. So he's working.
Yeah.
So
active.
Yep.
Right on. Keep it up, Kosh.
Clockwork Mod. Forgot about that.
Yeah. Right. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. I mean, I paid for Visor. Like he's probably making money. It's pretty good. If you go to clockworkmod.com, you see his projects, and you got Visor, Allcast, Helium, RAW Manager.
Visor's had more than 1 million installs. Like, that's good.
Good for him.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to round this out a little bit, some third-party smart displays just fell off the Google bandwagon a little bit. They got pushed off the bandwagon as Google's fallen out of love with them.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Exactly. 9 to 5 Google actually spotted in a Google support article for Duo calls on smart displays the following update. And it says, quote unquote, important, Google no longer provides software updates for these third-party smart displays, including the Lenovo Smart Display 7, 8, and 10-inch, the JBL LinkView and LG XBoom AI Think WK9 Smart Display. This could impact the quality of video calls and meetings. And all those third-party smart displays first hit the market in January 2018. They were announced at CES that year. Google had already disabled the web browser on third-party smart displays on February 2022. And any development since then for smart displays has been for the first-party Nest Hub displays, the products that Google does own. And consider that Google's new smart display strategy is hinging on Fuchsia. Unsure if that has anything to do with this, but it's important to note that as well when you're thinking about the future of smart displays. And this appears to be the latest casualty of Google's retraction of enthusiasm in the Assistant catalog. And the thing is that like they just noticed that but who knows how long it's been.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Like, yeah.
Like it's just hidden away in some Google Duo support thing. It's like, oh, by the way, third-party smart displays, not really supporting those anymore. You got to get your.
I think the writing was on the wall for a long time, considering all the features that have been coming to Google's first-party smart displays and not third-party ones. And then the fact that they killed off web browser support, because they didn't support safe search. Like, I think this was expected to happen eventually. And I actually don't see this is going to be a hot take right now, but I actually don't see the current crop of smart displays actually being a thing for the long term. I think the future is going towards full Android powered smart displays, such as the upcoming Pixel tablet.
The Pixel tablet being the format for the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the full Android powered / the tablet hybrid smart display is going to be what we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the future, rather than these underpowered smart displays. I think there was another news article actually, I think came out today. Like a lot of the new Assistant, those party games you can play, like those stopped working, and there's a couple other things that just stopped working on even Google's own smart displays. So this stuff is kind of just breaking left and right. And then they're killing off third-party smart display support. They're building a new tablet that doubles as a smart display. So and then there are the layoffs in the Fuchsia department. And I think the Nest Hub Max itself doesn't have Fuchsia yet, or I think I recently got it. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it's I think these non-Android powered smart displays don't have a long life left. I think the Pixel tablet and devices like that are where Google is headed.
But what about Fuchsia, man? Think of the Fuchsia.
Fuchsia.
Poor
Think
Fuchsia.
of the Fuchsia. Let's go back to the Fuchsia.
It was a great experiment. Is Fuchsia in anything else other than these smart displays right now? I mean, kind of seemed like, oh, Google's actually doing something with Fuchsia now, and it was the smart displays. And now it seems like with the Pixel tablet, you're probably right. They're probably moving away from that. So what happens with Fuchsia now? It was a fun experiment along the way, I guess.
Okay, actually, yeah, it's the Nest Hub Max does have Fuchsia, but it's the second gen Nest Hub that doesn't have Fuchsia, the most recent one. So,
okay,
what's
we
going on with
tried
that?
it. We did the Fuchsia thing, and we're moving on. It's not. It wasn't revolutionary the way we thought it might be. So, anyways, there's nothing to see here. Move along.
Wild. Yeah. All right. Well, move along then, indeed. And we're going to
Speaking of move along,
we're going to take a break before we talk about some apps to thank our next and final sponsor of the evening, because this episode of All About Android is brought to you by the fine folks at CacheFly. And listen, customers won't hang around for your content to load. We've learned that. So don't give them a reason to leave. Dramatically increase your sites and app speed over long distances for global audiences with CacheFly. With more than 3,500 clients in over 80 countries around the world, organizations like us here at Twit consistently use CacheFly for scalability, reliability, and unrivaled performance. Some markets are more challenging than others, and content delivery costs vary drastically. Partner with a CDN that knows what it takes to deliver content fast in global markets and is honest about the cost to get you there. Scale your content delivery in these emerging markets. in South and Central America are predicted to be a significant emerging market in gaming and entertainment over the next 5 years. CashFly is committed to navigating the complex government attitudes, tariffs, and laws to understand how this market operates. IP traffic in Asia Pacific is growing year over year by 25%, and Australia is no exception. Owing to a lack of early investment in the region, many network operators struggle to cover the entire Australian continent. With a presence in Melbourne, Perth, and Sydney, this isn't a problem for CashFly. And of course, India is a market that cannot be ignored. With one of the world's fastest growing consumer economies, mobile content consumption, and many business operations tied to the West, by providing edge-optimized content tailored to the mobile market and dedicated transfer and caching solutions, CashFly has your needs covered in the Indian market. So reach your audience anywhere in the world. With CashFly's 50-plus locations across the globe, you'll get ultra-low latency video streaming that delivers video to more than 1 million concurrent users, lightning fast gaming, which delivers downloads faster with zero lag, glitches, or outages, mobile content optimization that offers automatic and simple image optimization so your site loads faster on any device, plus never pay for service overlap again. Get flexible month-to-month billing for as long as you need it and discounts for fixed terms once you're happy. Design your own contract when you switch to CashFly. And how do we know all this? Because we've been using CashFly for over a decade, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Building trusted CDN relationships since 1999, CashFly continues to hold the track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery. CashFly is the only CDN built for throughput, delivering rich media content up to 10 times faster than traditional delivery methods and 30% faster than other major CDNs. Learn how you can get your first month free at cashfly.com. That's cashfly.com. And we thank them for sponsoring this episode of All About Android and for keeping our content flowing so fast you don't even notice it. CashFly, they're fantastic. Thanks so much. Go to cashfly.com.
Keep it flowing.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of keeping it flowing, let's flow into app news. Let's do it. Just flowing into the app news. The app news is flowing from our fingertips and from our mouths as we talk about personal loan apps. And Google has been targeting, had personal loan apps in its sites, in its targets for a little while now. You may remember sometime in the last year, I think Google banned apps that offered an annual interest rate that exceeded 36%. If you can believe loans at 36%, that's horrible. So good on Google to make sure that, at least attempt to make sure that apps that offer those horrible terms aren't available in the Play Store. But that's not all. Apparently, some of these personal loan apps, they require data, setting it all up, and that information, can spell a lot about the person who's signing up for the loan. It could be access to photos, videos, contacts, precise location, call logs, all this information that's shared with an app. And I think from what I understand, it's come to light that, some of the collections approaches for these personal loan apps has at some times involved using that data to then go after to leverage essentially getting the money back. And so they might contact the relative of the person who loaned and put pressure on them or shame, them into paying back on these high interest loans, essentially. So not great conduct. Google wants to protect, its users from that. And so they are making some changes to their rules. Debt collectors, let's see here. Sorry. Google is making a change to the personal loans policy. So this applies to apps on the Play Store. Of course, Google can't do much about apps outside of the Play Store as far as this is concerned. But new restrictions for these apps include being prohibited to access those things that I listed: photos, videos, contacts, precise location, call logs, all that stuff. So if you have a personal loan app, you can't have access to those things. This goes into effect on May 31st. So that's the end of next month. And I think that's pretty good news. I mean, this is just one of those examples of like, okay, we're saying yes to sharing this data. Do we actually understand that we're then also arming them with kind of like, the leverage that will come back around to us later and bite us in the butt. And I mean, in general, you probably don't want to be using these personal loan apps if you don't have to, because they can be a little skeezy. I mean,
there's people who do.
Well, of course. And, and unfortunately, like some people are just in a horrible situation that, they believe that this is their only option. And in some cases, I'm sure that is probably true. 36% being the cap, still, man, 36%. 35% is allowed, and that's just horrible. But I guess where do you draw the line? But anyways, I support this. I think that's good to protect the user.
Can you imagine 36% interest rate? Oh, my God.
No, I can't. Crazy. It's horrible.
That's brutal.
No good.
Well, in better news, if you, with all this AI and chatbot stuff and all this sort of stuff, if you had keyboard integration on your bingo card, you win. Because Microsoft is spreading the chatbot all around, and now the latest is SwiftKey. Remember SwiftKey? We used to love SwiftKey.
Oh yeah.
Android. Well, now Microsoft, who acquired SwiftKey years ago and has also developed Bing Chat AI, have now brought the two together in an awkward blind date, as Bing Chat AI has been added to SwiftKey with the tap of a button in any app. So this includes AI chat with the bot, as well as the tone mode feature that will rewrite text within the keyboard. And you must use the beta version for now, as it's being openly tested. So if you're not happy with the way you write, let Bing write for you.
There you go.
SwiftKey. So there it is.
I mean, this seems to, in my mind, lend credence to the idea that these chatbots are nothing more than like, next level autocorrect.
Yep. Pretty much.
Which, I mean, is kind of true in this context. It's like I wrote this instead of correcting my grammar. Correcting your grammar is like one step. Rewriting the entire sentence to say the same thing differently is the next step. And so I guess I'm not surprised. And Microsoft is all about its Bing Chat. They kind of got there before they got the scoop on ChatGPT integration before anyone else did. They're really driving that hard. So I'm not surprised that this has come to SwiftKey. Did anyone here still using SwiftKey? I mean, I used to be diehard SwiftKey all the time. I think my wife still uses SwiftKey, but I mean, I just use the default now because it got good enough that I didn't feel like I needed SwiftKey anymore, so I don't use it.
Yeah, no, I'm Gboard, fully Gboard. Another case of Google seeing what was being done in the marketplace and then doing it to the point where you don't consider a third-party option. I don't know. I mean, Mashal, was SwiftKey before your time, or did you ever play SwiftKey? How do you feel about it?
I think I was a big swipe user, if you all remember
that.
Yes.
Dragon.
That was the battle, right? It was, are you on swipe or SwiftKey if you like your swipey typing?
Then Gboard got, when they got swipe typing in and it became as good as swipe, if not better, then that's when I switched over.
Yeah. So this actually, now that we're talking through this, makes me wonder, when will Google bring Bard into Gboard?
I think it's only a matter of time.
It's not a matter of time. It's not so much about innovation. It's about keeping up with the Jones, right?
Yeah, right.
Microsoft is doing it, So we'll see about that. Whew.
So yes, and I mean we've seen the integration of Assistant into all these apps. Prepare yourself for the integration of Bard into all these apps, because it's coming. It's like next gen Assistant, as far as the playbook is concerned. I have a feeling, but I haven't actually played around with Bard, but I haven't heard really great things about it either. So even Cousin of Jean Chat is saying Bard is very undercooked at the moment. So
yeah,
there's that. Well, kind of along the same lines, actually, the Google Now launcher. So fire up the taps, Burke, because Google Now launcher first launched in 2013 on the much celebrated, at least on this show, and I think beyond, Nexus 5, shutting down for good. It began its life as the Google Experience launcher. Remember that? Gel. I remember talking about Gel before being renamed as it saw a much wider release in 2014 as the Google Now launcher. And the benefit of the launcher at the time, if you recall, was all those handy Google Now cards. Google Now was the thing. Those cards were useful, and this launcher really featured them. This was before the Assistant. This was before the Pixel phones, which, all came kind of like as successors to this, the beginning of all that stuff. Yeah. And if you install the app now, you're going to see one of those screens where it says this is going to stop working in April is, I think, what it says. So we don't know the exact date. It is now April 11th at the time of this recording. So could happen any day. We can now refer to it as the Google Then launcher.
Oh, Jason. Wow. Not only did you come back after being gone for 2 weeks, you came back ready to play.
Let's go.
I respect it.
The Google Then.
I'm going to play the contrarian a little bit.
Okay, cool.
It's always, it's a meme at this point to dunk on Google for killing, old products. But this one's like, I don't know why it wasn't killed a long time ago, because the whole point of this launcher was to provide an integrated experience with, at the time, it was called Google Now. Now it's, undergone multiple name changes.
What is Google Now now?
Google Feed.
It's certainly not that.
It's already, around the time with Android Nougat, Google provided a way for OEM launchers to integrate Google Now /Discover /Google Feed. And now you have that in most launchers now. First-party launchers, you have the ability to swipe over to the leftmost screen and there's your Google interface. So what's the point of Google Now launcher when every other launcher has that capability now? There's no point. So that's why they discontinued it a while ago, and finally they're killing it off for good.
Goodbye, Google Now launcher. No, you're absolutely right. It really has no need to even exist anymore, but still, I mean, any time, like this is a big deal when it came out. I remember, like, I was all about it. Sure. I was super excited about it. And just, so, it's kind of sad to say goodbye officially. Sometimes you just got to say goodbye.
10 years is a good run.
That's a good run. I mean, I don't know how many of those, the last handful of years, it was actually being used at all. Maybe if you had a device that old that hadn't received any updates or whatever, maybe. But even then, are those cards still working the way they used to? I don't even know that they are. So
I just remember when it came out, it was just so revolutionary. Oh man, it definitely felt like, oh wow, and the thing is that like it's the concept of bringing information forward to you versus you going into Google, like the idea of pushing stuff relevant to your interest and all that sort of stuff, it's not a new concept, like, dating back to the 90s with like Pointcast and stuff like that. But to see it integrated on the phone level at the time felt really game changer-y, So it's funny how fast 10 years goes by, Jason.
Yep. Yes, indeed. 10 years flies by the blink of an eye.
So much so. All right. Well, now is a good time to hear from our good friend J.R. Raphael, who's been doing Jason, while you've been gone, I don't know if you've been watching J.R.'s tips. Yeah. But he's been doing he's putting together a nice little series of YouTube related tips. And this is the third one in that series. And it's YouTube Android tips power round.
Power round.
So hope you're ready for some power. J.R., take it away.
Hey, good to see everyone as always. So we're in the midst of a multi-week YouTube tip extravaganza, in case you haven't been paying attention. And this week we're turning our focus from tucked away settings in the YouTube Android app to some out-of-sight shortcuts that are well worth burning into your beautiful bird brain and remembering to use. Some really, really good stuff here, so let's get into it. All right, first things first, I constantly find myself forgetting this, but you can skip back or forward by 10 seconds in any video you're watching by double tapping the left or right side of the video box while it's playing. Handy, right? If you want to skip even further, double tap once on the left of the box to go back or on the right to go forward, and then keep tapping. Every extra time you tap will add another 10 seconds onto your fast skip total. And one more thing on this topic, if you find yourself skipping by more than 10 seconds at a time more often than not, you can actually increase the YouTube Android app's default skip time increment. Yeah, who knew? Just tap on your profile picture in the upper right corner of the app's main screen, then select Settings followed by General. Find the option labeled Double Tap to Seek and change its setting from the default 10 seconds to 15, 20, 30, or 60. You can even bring it down to a 5-second starting point too if you'd rather. Whatever value you pick will be the amount of time that's skipped for you when you first double tap on a video, and also the amount of time that's added onto that skip with each additional tap beyond that. All skipping related shenanigans aside, we've got 5 more invisible shortcuts to feed into our brains, and I promise you, they're good ones. Here we go. Once you tap on a video to open it in YouTube on your phone, you can swipe up anywhere on the video box, whether it's playing or pause, to quickly move into a full screen landscape style view. Now, from that full screen view, you can then swipe up again to see related video suggestions and other available commands in a translucent overlay. And you can swipe down on the video to exit out of full screen mode and go back to the default vertical view. In that standard vertical view, you can swipe down on a video box to minimize the video and get back to the YouTube home screen or whatever screen you were viewing last. And last but not least, try tapping the little 3-dot menu icon alongside any video in the list beneath the one that's actively playing. That'll give you access to shortcuts for sharing that video, saving it to a watch later list, or even downloading it for later viewing if you've got a YouTube Premium subscription. Whichever way you go, you'll never have to even open the video in question or stop what you're currently playing. Whew, that was like a rapid-fire power round of YouTube Android tips. It's a lot to remember, I know. So if you want a cheat sheet, come sign up for my Android Intelligence newsletter. It gives you 3 new things to try every Friday, and if you reply to my welcome email, let me know that you came over from Twit and you want my complete YouTube Power User Guide. I'll write back and send you a massive guidebook I put together with all the tips we just went over and a bunch of other useful stuff for the YouTube app and website too. Just head over to androidintel.net/twit to get started. That's androidintel.net/twit. Next week, we'll keep the YouTube theme going with a look at some worthwhile privacy enhancements to consider for your Android video watching adventures. The joys of effective time wasting. Doesn't get much better than that. Back to you, gang.
Dang, he unearthed my my singing on X Factor.
He sure did.
Sexy and I Know It. I don't know how he found that, but there it was, and I look a lot different.
Find it. If anybody can find it, it's him.
Yeah, I know.
Not surprised.
He's always searching.
Yeah.
androidintel.net/twit. Thank you, JR, as always, for your awesome tips and your awesome newsletter. So everybody should check him out over there. And we have some of your feedback coming up next. AAA at twit.tv 347 show AAA. Oh, wow. That's disturbing. We've got to go at 11.
Yeah, you missed last week. Yeah, that's just a taste of it.
That's just a taste. Oh boy. Okay, so we have our first email this week is Ian Winkler, who's a subscriber since episode 0 and Club Twit member. Thank you, Ian, for all of the support. That's a long time. You've been with us the whole time, so that's pretty awesome. Ian says, I have a question about security updates. I have a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus that I got about 4 years ago. I recently found out that it will no longer receive Android security updates. I'm still happy with the phone. It still makes phone calls and texts. The pictures are of acceptable quality. It runs all my apps and the screen looks great still. Do I need to get a new phone? What are my risks if I keep using it? Thanks. Love the show. I mean, I think in general, the general, sense is that, yeah, once you stop receiving these regular updates, which it is confirmed that the S10 series, the initial S10 devices that were released. I think there were some released later in the year, like the Fan Edition, I believe, that isn't cut off entirely yet, but will be later, probably in like 6 months. But the initial Galaxy S10 series will not be receiving any more updates. They've received them for the past 4 years, I think, at this point. And so that was Samsung's commitment at the time. Or maybe that's about right. If you're not getting your updates, if you're not getting security updates, it does leave that device potentially exposed to something in the future. You should know that the update the very last update that you received on this device does patch the Exynos modem vulnerability. That was a big deal that we talked about on the show a little less than a month ago. So that does at least patch that. So that's good. But I mean, any future discoveries that relate to this phone, like, you're not going to get those security updates. So it leaves you vulnerable. I suppose you could install third-party third-party ROM of some sort if you trusted that, and the community is pretty active, I think, still in creating things to allow you to kind of elongate the health and the life of your device, but maybe you don't feel comfortable with that. I mean, there's really no easy answer here. It's just a bummer when you reach the end of your update cycle and security is important to you. I hate to say it, it's probably you get a new device. If you really want to, if you want to be on that train, that's just what you have to do. I don't know. Am I missing any important advice? Is that where you land on this, Michal, or do you have a different opinion?
I think you kind of nailed, you hit the nail on the head there for the most part. There is one thing, I'd like to put a caveat on, is like the custom ROM recommendation. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there are custom ROMs or AOSP projects you can install that would extend the usable longevity of your device, like if you want new features, new OS versions. But if you want to actually be fully protected against security vulnerabilities like the Exynos modem ones, then you're going to have to get a new phone, because those kinds of issues can only be patched by the vendor who makes those components, which in this case would be Samsung. So yeah, if you really got to look at your own threat model, right? Like, are you concerned about some of the vulnerabilities that you're seeing, like the Exynos one that sounds really bad, right? There was like the Android emergency calling bug, a while back that, could impact your ability to make emergency calls, right? Are you concerned about that affecting your device, right? Are you going to put this in a closet? Are you going to turn it into like a dedicated gaming device that you only turn on occasionally to play some mobile games, right? Like, if you're not intending to use it, putting any sensitive data on it, or you're not going to do anything really important on it, then maybe it's okay to keep using, as long as there's not some really nasty bug that exposes your other devices at home to something else. Like, it's really your own personal belief. Like, what are you comfortable with? Because like right now, if you keep using it, you're accepting that down the line there might be something, or there might already be some vulnerability that hasn't been disclosed yet, and your device is vulnerable to it, and the vendor won't do anything to update it. So it's basically a risk management. What are you comfortable with? Yes. I personally would update, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what other option you're really left with. I'm, someone in the chat room posted, traded in for a new thing. And that's a really good point. Samsung often has pretty good trade-in values, particularly, there are some times a year where they have better trade-in values than others. We've seen some pretty insane trade-in values that Samsung has offered right around the time that they announce a new device. So right now might not be the best time as far as value is concerned. But like, if you were getting the S23 and what phone did he say? Yes, he had S10 Plus. I did it for the S10, and it's $180 trade-in. It's not very much, but so the S10 Plus is probably going to be a higher trade-in value. But that cuts down the cost of a new device by a couple $100. So that's helpful. that actually gives you some extra value out of that device towards a new device. If you're going to have to buy a new device anyways, you might as well get a couple $100 off of it in the process and get, a fully updated Samsung phone. If Samsung's your bag, if that's what you want to stick with, that's great. They've got a really great update promise now. I think it's a year longer this time around if you're getting the S23. Or you could trade it for any Samsung device. So anyways, something to consider there. Because I think that is the only real option. If security updates are really important to you, if you're really, if you've analyzed, like Michelle said, your threat model, and you realize you need those updates, you're just not going to get it on your phone anymore. And you just kind of have to accept the fact that, hey, you got a lot of life out of that device, a lot of value. And if you can trade it and get a couple $100 back from that value, then it was an even better deal, right? And you get a new phone with an even longer security promise, and you don't have to worry about it for the next 5 years. Boom. That's not bad, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So there you go. So thanks for writing in, Ian. I hope that's helpful. Thanks for sticking with us since episode 0. It's awesome to have you here.
Love a long-time listener.
Yes,
for sure.
yes.
Our next email comes from Jason in Chicago, who writes in and says, I've had the Pixel Watch since launch. I came from a Garmin, and there are definitely things I missed/preferred on my Garmin. However, I committed 100% to the Pixel Watch and kept myself from going back and forth. I could go on with a 6-month review of the Pixel Watch, but this is about my recent vacation. The family went to New York City for spring break. Woo, spring break. First time taking the kids, parentheses, yes, Ron, we took them to Carvel. Good man, Jason, good man. Show your kids the Carvel love. I respect you. Good job. Okay. So he says, and first time with the Pixel Watch. Obviously, they're the usual useful features to track steps, 18,000 to 25,000 a day. But the best feature was using Google Maps on the Pixel Watch. I could start the walking directions on my phone, then click the little map icon on the watch. The screen would show my next direction and a distance to turn or the location. When I was 100 feet away from my turn, I would get a little vibrate, so I didn't have to stare at my watch, and even better, didn't have to pull my phone out every few minutes to make sure we're still going in the right direction. The Pixel Watch isn't perfect, and it definitely needs better app support. Parentheses, hanging on, hoping Pocket Cast finally makes a watch app. But I have hope that it will continue to get better. From back home in Chicago, Jason. And that's great. Jason, I'm glad to hear that you're happy with the Pixel Watch. The Google Maps kind of navigation aspect that's a nifty little thing. It buzzes, so you have that you've got a direction change coming up. So it keeps your focus on seeing the great sights of the city, the best city in the world that you were visiting. But it's funny because that's a Google app, right? And of course, it's optimized to work great on the Pixel Watch. And to your point, it's still, the other app developers need to embrace it. Good news for you if you haven't heard the news: Pocket Casts is developing a updated Wear OS 2, whatever, the latest version of Wear OS. They were doing a new version of the Pocket Casts podcast app for Pixel Watch. Just wish they had done that when the watch came out. That would have been a little better, but hopefully it will be better than the garbage podcast app that's on the phone already. So, so there you go.
Ron, not mincing words on that.
I just got to be honest.
Yeah, well, your experience was painful, so
yeah, it was.
You've earned
rough.
that. You've earned that.
Yep.
Thanks for writing in, though, Jason, and letting us know about your experience. Yeah, sounds like it's working for you, and it does work for a lot of people. It also does not work for other people too. So I think it's kind of both sides of the coin there. But thank you, Jason. All right, and with that, it is time for the email of the week. Boy, the horn players got a little frightened there for a second.
They sure did.
They had to restart. Mark from Albany, New York writes in, says, episode 623, you talked about the short message dichotomy between Apple and Android. I've been on Android since 2011. My wife has been on Apple since shortly afterwards. I've long embraced the green bubble life. The advent of RCS has been long awaited, but still too many of my messages are not in RCS. Anyway, yesterday, I had the first of many conversations with my daughter, also 12 years old, of why she can't message her friends through iMessage. She doesn't understand how come iCloud doesn't work on her Fire tab. How come she can't message them via Meta's Facebook Messenger? Kids. The conversation ended in tears and stomping up the stairs into her bedroom. I can't wait for the next round, and ready yourself for having that parenting conversation with your next of kin, all of them to organize playing Roblox where they all chat anyway. Hopefully you get some April showers to start your summer. Mark from Albany, New York. Yeah, the messaging pressure is real when it comes to school. My older daughter, she's 13. I can't remember if I mentioned this on the show before, but we recently, finally kind of acquiesced and created rules about her getting a phone and everything, and basically said, look, I've got an Android phone. You can have it for free. You know what I mean? Like I've got a drawer of phones. It's like I've got one that I can give you.
You want a phone? Use it. Phones, kid. What kind of phone do you want?
I'm your dad, and I do phones for a living, and I've got a phone. And she's like, nope, I want an iPhone. Her friends, they all have iPhones, and I was like, okay, well, great. You can have an iPhone. You just have to pay for it. You have to buy it because I've got a phone. So I'm not going to buy another one. I have a phone. It's this. If you want an iPhone, you got to buy it. And she had already saved up some money. So she bought herself an iPhone. And, that messaging pressure it's real, but I'm also the dad, like having conversations with her, like about the whole green bubble, blue bubble, out of curiosity, like, so what do your friends say about green bubbles? And we talked, she agrees about the ridiculousness of the whole thing and everything. But anyways, that's my perspective on this conversation. How does it land for you, Ron? Because your kids are much younger, but this is probably in their future at some point.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm delaying it for as long as possible. At this point, they don't even know a phone is a thing that somebody can have.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
it's going to be a while before you actually have to.
Although my daughter does now know how to take my wife's iPhone and take photos with it with the camera, so that's horrifying. And unfortunately, my son has taken to playing Marvel Snap with me whenever I'm playing it. So which is maddening because little 4-year-old fingers trying to drag and drop things on the screen. You're like, no, over there. Like
you're ruining my stats, kid.
I know exactly.
That's how I feel about YouTube recommendations and my Spotify playlist. My kids are just always ruining my stats. I can't trust any of these recommendations because they're all formed around them and not me. Anyways, a lot to look forward to in the coming years for you, Ron. But I feel your pain, Mark. I feel your pain. One parent to another. Thanks for being the email of the week. All right, with that, we have reached the end of this episode of All About Android. And I don't know, it's kind of refreshing to not have to dive into specs of hardware and stuff this week. I got to say, it was nice to have a news-heavy episode this time around. And awesome to have Mishal on to talk through it because, Mishal, you offer a perspective that runs, on many of these stories, runs deeper than Ron and I's knee-jerk reaction, oh, I don't like that. And you're like, well, actually, let me tell you why it's like that. Oh, okay, I get it. So, Mishal, always a pleasure getting you on the show. Thank you for joining us once again. What you up to? What do you want people to know about? Plug away.
Well, if you like learning about Android and you want to find out what's going to happen in Android 14, follow me on Twitter. I know that's a naughty place right now, but follow me on Twitter at Mishal Rahman. I'm also on pretty much all the other socials like Telegram, Mastodon, etc. Same handle. So if you want Android news, that's where you can find it.
This is the guy. When it comes to Android news, he's the guy. Mishal Rahman. Thank you, Mishal. Always a pleasure. And Ron, great to podcast with you once again. I have to thank you for any of these times that I end up taking off and, you end up doing so much of the legwork to allow me to do that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, all good. I happy to do it so you can get a well-deserved break, and I'm actually going to miss next week. So there you go.
There you go.
So yeah, so one good turn deserves another, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at RonXO. Nothing really else to report. Just working hard, getting ready for a vacation next week. So
Excellent.
I'll be back on the 25th to talk about Android. Refreshed.
We'll have a refreshing and awesome vacation while you're away. And we will miss you. Big thanks to J.R. Raphael, Android Intelligence, androidintel.net/twit, as a reminder for his newsletter. Go get it. Big thank you to Burke for pushing the buttons and making all the tech work this week and every week on the show. Although I should say last week, Victor was in your hot seat. So big thanks to Victor for filling in, and well, that's what you get, Victor. I didn't play that sound effect. Burke played that sound effect, so you can throw your blame at him. You can find me at Jason Howell on Twitter, twit.social/@JasonHowell on Mastodon. I'm just not doing a whole lot of social stuff right now, and especially after the vacation. Wow, I went really silent. So sorry about that, but it's kind of refreshing. It's kind of nice. We'll see how long it lasts. Don't forget Club Twit, our ad-free subscription tier. All of our shows with no ads. You also get exclusive Twit Plus podcast feed content, tons of extra content, including probably our pre-show from today, where I talk all about the ups and the downs of my recent vacation in Costa Rica with my family. Far more ups. Just a single story that indicates the downs. But anyways, you can get that in that Twit Plus podcast feed if you are a member of Club Twit. You also get access to our members only Discord. That's $7 a month at twit.tv/clubtwit. As for this show, we publish every Tuesday evening. Twit.tv/AAA is the place to go. You can find all the ways to subscribe to All About Android by going there. Jump out to YouTube if that's your thing. It's all there, including all of our past episodes. So twit.tv/AAA. And that's really about it. So thank y'all for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I am the host of Hands-On Photography here on Twit TV. I know you got yourself a fancy smartphone, you got yourself a fancy camera, but your pictures are still lacking. Can't quite figure out what the heck shutter speed means? Watch my show. I got you covered. Want to know more about just the ISO and exposure triangle in general? Yeah, I got you covered. Or if you got all of that down, you want to get into lighting, making things look better by changing the lights around you. I got you covered on that too. So check us out each and every Thursday here on the network. Go to twit.tv/hop and subscribe today.